Can I start, comrades?
Sharp.
Hey, comrades, can't we just start?
Here's the mic.
If you,
that one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, members of the media. Can we try and lower our voices so that we can hear each other? So, morning to all of you once more. This room where you are all in is the press room. This is going to be a place where you interact with the leadership of the ANC in formal briefings throughout the 55th National Conference. So we have taken some of you here before when we did site walkabouts, and we also came in to verify what is going to be happening. This morning's briefing really is just to give you an update and set the scene for the start of the national conference. At the conclusion of this, we've already arranged that we'll also do just another walkabout where we'll now take you to the plenary hall, including commission rooms, so that you can now have a feel of that plenary hall that you came to see before it had all the chairs, the draping and all of that. Those of you who are attending briefings of the ANC for the first time, my name is Pule Mabe. I'm the national spokesperson of the African National Congress, outgoing. So we have distributed a folder file. So the folder file that you have has got a program inside. So this is the program of the national conference. At the back of the folder file, we explain the media village and its functionalities. You will see that the media village has got about 4 components. The media lounge, Those of you who have been here before know the media lounge. And the media lounge has got a number of workstations there, dining facilities. You can get your coffee there as well, and water. Any other thing that you want, as long as it's non-alcoholic, will have to come from your pocket. Then media relations. So where you are is the press room. The press room falls under the media relations component of the village. So you've got the digital and visual media. So the press, there's got the media relations has got the press room, the press conference facility, which is this one. What we have also added is an ANC today outside gazebo that you can use to do interviews outside the press room. So it will be set up just as you enter the media village. We'll also do media streaming for those that follow us. So the streaming team is also falls under this component. You've got the digital and visual media. That's good. This has to do with your television broadcast studios, the studios that we had a lot of back and forth with. You can see we've set up our own, what our security guys refers to as an informal settlement. We've set up our own broadcast informal settlement just outside here. All the studios are set up there, so it provides space for yourselves to be able to do your work. We also have got radio broadcast studios. We've got podcast studios, we've got outside studios as well, and outside broadcast units. And our content and messaging is done by ANC Today. What we said the ANC Today team will also have to handle is the interviews, those outside interviews. So they will be setting up that gazebo, as I had said, where you will be able to then engage with individual leaders of the African National Congress, delegates that you might want to talk to, and all of that. Now under that, you have got the directory of the village. It's just on your file. So on the directory, some of the numbers have been updated. For instance, Comrade Amos Paho's number is the one that you have, not the one that is here. I'm sure all of you have got Comrade Amos Paho's number. Those are many of you have. I know Amos. I've never said this to you. Just as by the way, they did indicate that sometimes you don't pick up calls. At the conference, I'm sure there's going to be improvement. So I've passed the message. Amos now knows he's going to be available for all of you. But the media relations team doesn't include Amos alone. You know Comrade Steve. Comrade Steve is part of the media relations team. You know Comrade Mlemandlela Ndamase. Comrade Mlemandlela is part of the media relations team. Comrade Kiitumetsi, she's part of the media relations team. Comrade Amanda. I'm reading these ones of the media relations specifically because they are going to be interacting with yourselves directly. You know Comrade Crispin, Comrade William Baloi, Nati, Mklaba, Mtusi, Chris Vondo, and Clayson. So there are comrades who will assist you on media relations, but they fall on different segments, like Comrade Cornelius. You know him, he's the former manager of communications at Lituli House. He left us for other pastures. But he's here. He will be able to assist when you need assistance as well. So comrades, when you go down, there are the do's and don'ts. This is very important because it is applicable to everyone who is in the conference precinct. So everyone's conduct. So everyone must conduct themselves in a comradely manner. Where it deals with the media, I'm sure it will have to mean friendly. Show mutual respect, not being under the influence of alcohol. Let's read it together. not being under the influence of alcohol or any substance. This is applicable to everyone. Engaging in robust but healthy engagements. Making contributions that build the organization. Yourselves is contribution to society out there through the free flow of information. Enhancing the rights of everyone at conference, protecting and enhancing the image and values of the ANC. This is more applicable to delegates, so that you don't go out and say the ANC also placed this on us as the media. Well, we're also saying our delegates must sing songs that reflect our rich history and avoid those that divide us. That they must respect the chairpersons of plenary sessions and commissions, avoid disruptive behavior, including excessive and unnecessary points of order, booing, shouting down people on the floor, and etc. So through yourselves, surely our delegates are watching wherever they are, so they will come here knowing exactly what's expected of them. Discourage and report any boycotted behavior. This includes racism, ethnic chauvinism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, and etc. The possession of waypoints by and delegate at conference, including the media. No one except those authorized is allowed to carry a weapon here inside conference. I'm sure you have seen our security is well on point. If you tried something with a small knife, you might not be able to make it here. Because we have to protect yourselves, members of the media. We have to protect our delegates. We have to make sure that this place is safe for everyone. Behavior that violates the provisions of the Constitution of the ANC, form of violence, threats of violence, intimidation or bullying, act of sexual harassment, acts of criminality and destruction of property. Very important for our delegates. Acts of vote buying, or any attempts to influence the deliberations of conference through unethical means. Behavior that threatens to divide the ANC. So we are not going to tolerate any of these that fall under the don'ts. Should we be made aware through the conference steering committee that there are delegates or others inside the conference precinct who are doing this that are not allowed inside conference, will be able to act decisively. And if such actions constitute acts of criminality, the South African police services within reach here will also have to make sure that we activate such. Delegates must be free in this conference. They must be free to express themselves and to do any other thing that they need to do, for as long as such is allowed and permitted by the rules of the African National Congress and by the Constitution of the ANC. When we met previously, we indicated that part of what we will do is that we will have, as today, we'll have a media open day. We have canvassed this concept with the National Conference Preparatory Committee. It has been fully accepted. The beverages that are allowed to be consumed inside the venue or around the conference precinct, including here in the media village, are non-alcoholic beverages. Non-alcoholic beverages. So anyone who is within this precinct must not conduct or carry themselves in a manner or way that creates doubt or suspicion, either about their movements or other things. So it's going to be very important. If you start elsewhere, just make sure you walk straight. Please. Because we can't impose rules, set rules for our delegates and give you colleagues from the media different privileges. So we have to make sure that what applies that side also applies this side. So that is as far as the program is concerned. Now let's just deal with what is happening on day one. So just as an aside, so this file is part of the marketing things that we were speaking about when we met with members of the media. It's nothing complicated. You saw the notepad with a pen. This one. So when we came to meet with yourselves and said some marketing stuff, this is what we meant. I see some of you have already opened it, pens are ready to write. You could have done it with us, you see. This is what we're talking about. So it had nothing to do with enriching the ANC. No, we just wanted you to be able to have stuff to work from. Now it's fine. The ANC managed to go out of its way and got this. So you can make your notes on the books. So now they belong to you, these books, the NCS. We decided that we'll go out and get them for you. So these books are formally and officially yours. They belong to you guys now. Because maybe you thought the ANC wanted to do something else. We just wanted to do these books. We also wanted to do these files so that we can write this directory for yourselves. So we're coming to yourselves to do things that are going to be used by you, not by us. But because it was creating an issue with SANEF, with yourselves, with everyone, we said, no, maybe we must go do these things. Come and show you what they are practically. You know, sometimes seeing is believing. So we said, no, we'll do these things. The file is this one. The directory is this. So inside this, there's a program. So we were supposed to start at 8:30. We had some delays at registration, which are being resolved. Delegates are beginning to arrive. We must wish them well. Of course, it's going to be a very exciting conference. We have seen the energy that is there. And members of the ANC always approach their conferences with a great sense of camaraderie, and we hope the same will prevail in this conference. We'll indicate to yourselves when we open session 1, the media relations team that is there on your file. So you have to keep these files because this file has got almost everything you need to know throughout the conference. So we'll have interdenominational prayers, the national anthem, and the African Union anthem. And then we'll move to session 2, which will again be an open session. So you'll notice between session 1 and session 2, on top of that will be that open day that we will do for yourselves. But we want that open day to run up until we close the open session. It means after the president has delivered the political address and the media is now out of that and the session is no longer an open session, we move into other sessions. We expect all members of the media to be here in the media village. You have got ablution facilities here in the media village. If we find a member of the media outside the media village when it is not an open session, we have already discussed this, and I'm sure you all know it's very possible. So let's avoid that possibility. Just make sure you keep to the media village. When you go out, the media relations team will come and lead you to the plenary hall. We have already indicated to the security personnel that after this briefing, we will be taking you to the plenary hall so that you can be able to have a feel of how conference is going to really look like. You have been here before. So we're going to do that. Where there are cadres that you may want to interact with, make such requests through ourselves. Let me indicate that the Department of Information and Publicity, its authority is limited to structures of the ANC and delegates in conference. If you want to talk to nominees in this conference, you are welcome to do so, but you can do so through the Electoral Committee of the ANC. But if you want to talk to members of the National Executive Committee, members of provincial executive committees, delegates to this conference, the DIP team will assist. Any other cadre who falls outside that category is not the responsibility of DIP. Please. Let me repeat. If you are making requests to DIP on who you want to speak to, these comrades must fall under the following categories. There must either be members of provincial executive, members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, national officials of the ANC, members of provincial executive committees of the ANC in provinces, preferably provincial secretaries and provincial chairpersons. Members of regional executive committees of the ANC, preferably regional chairs and regional secretaries. Delegates, branch delegates in this conference. Any other person who falls outside that category is not the responsibility of DIP. If you want to talk to nominees, do it outside us. This media village has been put up and set up to fulfill the work of conference. And the work of conference is stipulated here in this program. So every other thing that we are going to be doing here is going to be guided by this program. When you want to talk to individual leaders of the African National Congress who are in the NEC, already the media relations team is sitting with a list. So when you make requests, when you make a request, it could either be approved or be declined or be put in suspense. So if you ask us to speak to someone who is not in a conference, if we don't come to you at that point, it could be that whomever you are wanting to interview is not within the conference precinct. It could also be that they have not accepted that media engagement. So let's work together on those things. So we're done with the program. The second update that we must give you is around our special NEC. We had a special National Executive Committee of the ANC yesterday. There are issues we specifically dealt with. One of them is an issue of public interest around members of parliament who voted against party line on the Section 89 report. The NEC, in its deliberation and out of its own collective wisdom, concluded that following the party line is important for the unity of the organization. And that any member who goes against party line not only erodes the discipline of the organization, but undermines what we are supposed to fulfill, which is to unite our members. And that consensus in our meetings is forged through debates. That there's never been a time when the ANC National Executive Committee, through its spokesperson or through its Secretary General's office, had to go out and explain to the media who said what in the meeting. That every time what we went to deposit outside has always been decisions of the ANC, which should be a reflection of the minimum consensus forged in those meetings. This long-standing culture has not changed. In arriving at this conclusion, the NEC was also reminded by the courageous act taken by Krizani, who did not agree with the dissolution of the armed struggle, and yet was the first one to come out and pronounce his affirmation of the ANC doing away with the armed struggle. This was a courageous act, and we felt that it is this act of courage that must continue to inspire everyone in the organization on how we act on matters that have got to do with party discipline. As it relates to those of our cadres who did not follow the party line, the NEC concluded that we should not use debates, we should not use discipline again to stifle debates in the African National Congress. A view that our national chairperson had already placed out in the public. Having regard to this, and again paying attention to the unity of our organization, the success of the revolution that the ANC is expected to undertake, the National Democratic Revolution. That we empower the incoming National Executive Committee, which will be elected here in this national conference, to pay attention on what would have happened on the Section 89 report, and deal with any other matter that might be similar to that which will have taken place in the past, so that actions taken by the ANC on this kind of matters and as it relates to the conduct of its own cadres is consistent. All members of the ANC must feel that they belong to one organization, they are treated the same and fairly. As a consequence of this, there is no member of the National Executive Committee, as it is now, who will be appearing before the National Disciplinary Committee. These matters will be processed by the incoming National Executive Committee, and the incoming National Executive Committee will determine the course of action, having looked at all of the cases of a similar nature that would have occurred in the past. We have seen already yesterday members of the media carrying letters purported to be from the NDC. It is very important that members of the media, when the NEC of the ANC is in session, they allow it to conclude, come out and brief it on what its decisions are. As we hand over this National Executive Committee to the incoming leadership, the 55th National Executive Committee, which is expected to be elected over this weekend, the NEC, the ANC is not coming here to bury itself. The incoming NEC will have the responsibility to take forward some of these issues. And if they arrive at a determination that this case and others of a similar nature in the past require the attention of the NDC or any other disciplinary structure of the ANC, they will take that decision. There will be an NEC. We will say to them in our handover report, part of the issues that you must attend to when you take office is this. Because not towing a party line, if it is not properly addressed, has got the potential to erode the authority of the party, even at the local government level. We do not want our councillors behaving erroneously and arguing that they saw this being done by us in upper structures. We do not want our MPLs behaving in the same way and arguing that this is being done by upper structures. The discipline of the ANC must be common and consistent. What we do in municipalities when cadres do not toe the line must be what is done everywhere else where comrades don't toe the line. We need to remind our members and structures that towing the party line once more is important to the overall unity of the organization. This is one principle that the ANC cannot renege or compromise on. We must uphold this at all material times. The National Conference Preparatory Committee will meet just after the delivery of the political report to finalize and communicate key resolutions coming out of the NEC, especially as it relates to the review or amendments of some of the rules on the electoral committee, on the electoral guidelines. Specifically, the rule that deals with the right of a member to stand when such a member has been found guilty with or without the option of a fine. So we have got to attend to what our resolution is, convey that, and communicate one consistent message, so that those of our cadres that might be affected by what would be the final decision or may not be affected, such is fully communicated. We have got a responsibility to make sure that there is nothing that will collapse this conference. The commitment made by the National Executive Committee when we met yesterday is that we are going to do everything else in our power to make sure that this conference conclude its business. We are expected to nominate national officials today. We expect our delegates to vote for national officials tomorrow morning. And this collectively, this leadership agreed that it will do everything else to make sure that all these processes run smoothly. We are encouraged by the fact that registration has not been disrupted. Besides time and systems glitches, everything is going as planned. Our lower structures can learn a lot from how we are conducting this national conference. We want all our gatherings to be undertaken in this fashion. Meetings of the ANC must never collapse because of credentials. We have to debate robustly. Members of the ANC are dynamic themselves and ultimately find each other. It doesn't mean that if you go to a meeting and held a specific view, if you raised that view in the meeting and that view is not ultimately conveyed out there, you are a lesser cadre. No, you are still an activist. So those delegates that are coming to conference must come with that kind of an understanding. Working with yourselves in the media and your constructive reports during the policy conference, we are looking forward to the same. Your reports don't have to be favorable to the ANC. We subscribe to an independent media ourselves. We articulated and advanced freedom of speech. So that is why when there was misunderstanding on what we had communicated out in the public and others seeking to suggest that we may want the media to pay to cover an ANC conference, it worried us a lot. We'll never do that. This is your space. Whoever you want to talk to, as we have said, you will make such requests and will make those cadres available. The other point, must also welcome the decisions of the courts. There are comrades who had gone to court to ask the court to compel the electoral committee to release raw data. Well, they would have exercised their rights when they were doing that. We can't take away the rights of our members to approach courts. It is their democratic right. But want to believe that as democratic, as disciplined members of the ANC, they will also act to accept the decisions of the courts. They know what happened in the branches. We have now communicated the list of those that have qualified, and we are expecting, especially of additionals, and we are expecting that our branches will have a fair opportunity to choose from those. If some of those comrades who went to court believe that they have got cadres rallying behind them, here is the right space, not even the court. They can be nominated from the floor. So let's do a litmus test. Let's check. I guarantee you all have got the names of the ones who went to court. Let's check if they can make it from the floor. Not very far, from the floor. Not from the court, just from the floor. Want to check how they will fare. They are here. If they are not delegates, they can even write letters and contest with letters. But let's check. So we are inviting them that, comrades, you still have got an opportunity. Losing court was not the final arbiter. You can come and try here.
Well, these are live pictures from UNISA in Omonde, where hundreds of ANC delegates are still waiting to register this morning. There's a little bit of frustration, as some of them say they've been here today and were not able to get some assistance. If you could see the visuals towards there, there is some ANC. All right. We're live at the moment. It seems that we've got accreditation. We've got accreditation. It seems like one of the gentlemen here wants us to go outside of this area. Camera. But we need to speak to some of the delegates. We need to speak to some of the delegates, sir. We need to speak to some of the delegates. We've got accreditation, though, to be here. But we've got accreditation to be here. We need to speak to some of the delegates, and that we're broadcasting.
Don't worry.
No, but they're coming inside. All right, we'll speak to some of them. It seems that there's a delegation that does not want us to be at this stage and are asking us to leave the facility here at the moment, where delegates have been waiting for a very long time to register here. We'll move towards this direction, perhaps. But why can't we be there as well? We've got accreditation.
You're not allowed to come in here.
Oh, all right.
You've got accreditation for there, not here.
All right. Some of the delegates will stand from this particular area with my colleague. We'll stop here and we'll pan towards that particular direction. This is where you see delegates that have been waiting to go in for some hours now, we understand. If my colleague Masabata Ralitabo can just point or move a camera towards that direction. There are delegates from Limpopo as well as the Eastern Cape that have been waiting for a long time now to try and get here. So I'm going to try and bring in as well the chief whip of the ANC, Pemi Machodina. I see her here at the moment, and I'll just speak to her in just a moment and ask her perhaps on what is taking place here at the moment. We're live in Omonde, and this is where the accreditation is taking place for some of the delegates. Mayor Pemi Machodina, if you could come and join me, please. Good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. Just taking a look there behind me, Mam Pemi, it seems that there's a little bit of frustration from some of the delegates. They've not yet been able to register. I see they're trying to push some of the delegates back. What is the situation at the moment?
Yes, indeed, the situation is not very good now. We have a lot of candidates or delegates who have not as yet registered. There was mix-up in terms of names. There was mix-up in terms of their photos. That is why now the registration center has reopened to allow members to register again. And we really want to apologize for all the mishaps as the NEC. It was not intentionally. So when people change certain names, then it also affects us. But the system also collapsed because this is the biggest conference ever in the history of the African National Congress.
What does this mean? Does this mean then there will be delays in the conference itself getting underway? I know just a few moments ago I wasn't privy to what Pule Mabe was saying, but does this mean there'll be a slight delay then to the start of the program itself?
Of course, there will be slight delays because we're supposed to start at 10 o'clock, but you cannot start when you still have voting delegates who are supposed to be accredited that are still outside, are waiting for their accreditation. Let's just be patient, but certainly the conference will start.
Is it true, though, from some of the conversations that my colleagues had, Mampemi, is that there were some delegates who say that they tried to register, they were not able to register? As the ANC, did you get such reports from some who were not able to register, even though they expected their names to be there?
Not that report as yet, but we do have provincial secretaries, the steering committee, that went through each and every region, each and every province, and by yesterday we were assured that all delegates are in the system. What is left is for them to get their name tags. But when the name tags were printed, there was a confusion on names and pictures. So that has been corrected. I hope now for the next hour or so we're going to clear this issue.
There's a lot that has happened preceding the start of this conference today, Mrs. Machodina. And this morning we wake up to news of a private prosecution, a statement from the Jacob Zuma Foundation. As the ANC, there's a lot that's been said about whether this can even happen. Nithi nini ANC jeba inkomfa izawuqala namhlanje.
Inkomfa mayiqale izithunywa zenkomfa nazi apha umuntu ofuna ukuya court makabheke court kodwa apha kuzawugqiba iANC kuzawugqiba amasebe ANC afaka umuntu kuzawuba nhleke into yoba noko ababeke babazinkokheli mabavumele enye inkokheli ikhokhele nabo babenikwe ithuba lokhokhela makungathi ngomzuzu ogqibela bavele bafuna ukuvala.
Mampemi, from what you are saying, you're saying that, if I'm reading correctly, you're saying that former President Jacob Zuma was allowed to lead. He must allow others to lead.
He was allowed to lead. He was defended by this very ANC. We supported him throughout. Let him allow other leaders to lead.
Are you disappointed by the turn of events?
I'm disappointed on the conduct of such leaders. That is why in what happened in Parliament, I had to elevate that to the NEC officials, and the NEC yesterday endorsed and condemned that it was wrong for 5 members to vote against the party. There's a party line that we've been carrying throughout this democracy from 1994. Once the party have spoken, whether you agree or you don't agree, you must toe the party line.
When is that disciplinary process due to begin? Do we have any idea?
Yes, the NEC yesterday has deferred it to the new and incoming NEC because now we're busy with conference. We don't want to be diverted by those, and we don't want to make heroes out of nothing because 5 people compared to 214 who voted positively in line with the ANC, they must not derail us. Let's focus on the conference and move forward.
Is there a sentiment at this stage, based on what you were saying, that these members should be expelled because they went against what the ANC said should be done inside Parliament, that you should toe the party line?
There are processes in the ANC. You don't start by expelling on media. Yeah. You must allow them to explain themselves. Then allow all the processes and the sanctions that are enshrined in the Constitution. What do you do? We have expelled councillors. Yesterday we had by-elections in 2 municipalities where ANC councillors did not toe the line. They were expelled. So there is no one that is untouchable in the ANC. We're all members of the ANC, and therefore we must align ourselves with what the ANC has said we must do.
Mampemi, I'm going to ask you, please. We've been told that we cannot go in here. We've got accreditation. I am checking if you could perhaps assist in this regard. Right. All right, we'll go towards this direction, perhaps if we're accompanied by you, because we need to get the sentiment from delegates as well. They are the ones, my colleague Masabata Ralitabo, perhaps we'll walk with Pemi Machodina towards this area. This is the area where these delegates are saying that they are not able to move towards the Nasrec area at this point. This confirming as well, Mrs. Machodina, that this would mean then a delay to the conference itself, because do we know how many provinces have not yet registered at this stage, Member Chotina?
By now, I don't have the specifics, but by yesterday, 5 provinces have registered. There were few people that were left outside in those regions, but now the process is restarting again. I'm very confident that all of them, they are going to be accredited and be allowed to get into NASREC. So let's just be patient with the ANC. This is the biggest conference, but we're going to make it. This is the ANC. It has its own challenges, but these delegates of the ANC are here to exercise their democratic right and their organizational right to ensure that this 55th conference does not collapse. And I'm confident that these ANC delegates are going to take us forward and have a smooth conference. Surely, when you have such a big organization, you'll have voices that are not speaking the same thing, and we must allow those voices to talk because this is the ANC.
All right, Mampemi Machodina, thank you very much indeed. Here to come and check what the state of affairs is with regard to the registration of these delegates. There are still hundreds of them at this particular point that have not yet registered. She's not able to say exactly how many of the provinces have not yet registered. Molweni Sisi kunjani? Okay, Sisi. So ke ngoku nifuna ungena apha ngaphakathi mama. You have not registered yet. When did you arrive?
I arrived on Friday. Friday, 3 o'clock, I was here. And up to so far, I don't have my tag with me. But luckily enough, there is RS who said, I must just wait here. He's coming with my tag to enter to the conference. We are here to nominate our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, second term, and Matamele.
Thank you very much, Mama. Let's speak to Molweni Bethuna abanye molo wena uvela phi siswam kudala ulindile for accreditation izolo beni lapha.
Yes, sizilapha izolo into enzekayo ukuthi isystem idown saphinda savuka ekseni kwathi basiyathanda ubalapha sizophindisa upresident wethu uRamaphosa sisalindile kodwa ke igate siyivule ngokwethu sangena.
And indeed, a few moments before we came to air, these delegates had come through that gate. They'd been waiting for several hours. Let me speak to some of them as well in this area. Sanbonani Molweni Molo. Kudala nilindile tata ninethemba lokuthi finally nizawuregisterisha. Kuthiwa kune delays ezithile nje.
Yeah, according to the information that we had, only delay nyana fela ya the registration, but as soon as possible tabe se re register as call. Yes.
Wena baba?
No, as soon as possible tabe se register.
Now you'll see towards this direction. Now, lady, just a moment, if you could stay with me for a second. My colleague Masabata Ralitabo is able to move towards this area. You'll see delegates have now burst into song at this direction here where we are. Many of them wanting to register here this morning. Pemi Machotina confirming to us that this is going to somewhat delay the start of the conference itself. She's not able to say exactly for how long, but of course we woke up this morning, you would recall that this morning we also had some of that communication Foundation talking about a private prosecution. We heard words from Pemi Machotina. They're saying categorically that the was allowed. He should allow others to lead as well. Talking, of course, about this private prosecution. We're waking up to perhaps let me bring in as well the political editor of the SABC, Mzwandile Mbeche, who's also here. Mzwai, delays now to the conference. This being confirmed by Pemi Machotina because of the registration of some of these delegates. We understand they'll run into hundreds.
Yes, I think some of them were saying, remember there's a new system that they are using, and it hadn't been tested anywhere in the provinces. So now they're trying it on the national scale. And of course, it gives its own problems. But Griselda, one of the things that also we have understood may have happened is that some of the delegates were actually denied because they are ineligible for all sorts of things. So this tended to cause long delays. But of course, we will see now they've just decided to force open the gates, and as we continue, we'll also try and speak to them and hear what actually are they here for in terms of policy proposals, because it's not so much about leadership. So in terms of policy, what is it that they are here? I think as you speak to them, you'll be able to reflect. In fact, very soon they want to chuck us out of here. But let's maybe get...
All right. Baba, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's talk about the policies of the ANC as delegates coming to this conference. What are some of the key policies that you want the ANC to touch on?
Well, the very first one would definitely be load shedding. Look at how we can improve the energy and see how we can improve ESCOM. The other one is definitely unemployment. We need to put food on the table of people and see how they can. And then there's disasters, such as water issues. It's just basic issues that the ANC need to look at. Going back to the poor and those who they represent, and bring back the trust of the people.
Thank you very much, sir. Come towards this particular area. Malwani Baba, you have not registered yet or have been accredited as yet. What policies are you hoping that the ANC will focus on conference? Policies. All right, these live pictures, Naledi, from Omonde. This is where hundreds of delegates are still waiting to be accredited. We're hearing from Pemi Machotina that this might delay the conference somewhat. These live pictures from Omonde.
Of course, you'd understand that the program was set to kick off at 8:30 this morning. That also confirmed by the national spokesperson of the party, Bule Mabe, in a press briefing just a moment ago. He confirming that the program was set to start at 8:30. Now, a clear understanding of why the program is running so badly late, because hundreds of delegates, as you can see in Omonde, struggling still to get their hands on their accreditation. And of course, Criseldo also, they're asking a lot of questions around what they'd like to see from a policy point of view. And that, a big talking point certainly in the program today on day one of the 55th National Conference of the African National Congress. I am, of course, joined by our very own SABC News reporter, Samkele Maseko, just to unpack where we are right now as we wait, in fact, to kick off the program of the conference. Again, 8:30 we were supposed to be seeing the prayer session taking place. I mean, at this point, we should have already seen the president of the party, according to the program given to the media. The president already just after 9 o'clock expected to give his political report. We haven't gotten there yet. Is this a sense of the disarray that the party finds itself in?
Well, Naledi, the first important issue that you need to tackle is that the registration issue. Should those delegates outside that registration venue barge into the registration center of the delegates, that would have a huge impact on the credentials of conference, because that would essentially mean that the registration process has been tampered with and has had a gap in it, and that would be a bone of contention in the conference in itself. That's why we had to see that roller door having to be closed, because they can't afford to have that registration venue of the delegates compromised, because that would essentially compromise the legitimacy of this conference, because the legitimacy of the delegates, over the 4,000 delegates that would be inside this conference venue here at Nasrec, would then be questioned and would open up this conference to litigation issues. That is why that was most critical for the ANC to close that entire registration process down. That is why the president of the ANC, he arrived here in the morning at about 9 o'clock. Shortly after his arrival, 30 minutes later, the acting secretary general of the ANC, Paul Mashatile, arrived. He is already inside the venue himself. Some leaders of the ANC top six, Gweda Mantashe, most of them have arrived inside here. And that registration process is pretty much what is stalling the conference of the ANC. In previous years, the conferences of the ANC, the registration process, pre-registration, would be done at a provincial level. When it comes to the national level, delegates would only be collecting their tags. It speaks to that disorganization disorganization of Luthuli House and having no permanent individuals in the SGO office of the African National Congress.
I mean, you talk about if those roller doors are to be forced open by delegates who are trying to get their accreditation in those live images that we showed you, opening up the party to litigation. We've seen the party facing litigation just this week in the run-up to the election, where members of the party were concerned about even the nominations list going into the NEC. So it seems that there is a distrust in the process of the party.
There is a huge distrust amongst ANC leaders, amongst themselves alone, and they don't trust one another. You look at the preparations towards conferences, you look at the litigation issues, you look at the fights over credentials, some alleging that they are bogus delegates at conferences. You go to the Northwest Provincial Conference, there were allegations of tags being printed. You just go to the recent conference of the ANC Youth League in KwaZulu-Natal, which collapsed. Tags seen being printed in South Beach of bogus delegates allegedly in that conference. So the issue of credentials becomes very important at conferences, because if you lose the issue of credentials, that is where you will win or lose a conference. That's why in that registration venue, they had to put down those roller doors, because if you compromise the registration processes of delegates, it creates chaos in plenary of conference, because the issue of delegates and their tags being at conference becomes a bone of contention, which is then becomes a huge issue within these conferences. And those are some of the issues that particularly the ANC, when it comes to the cleaning up of credentials, for instance, that's why they have continuous meetings of the credentials committee to try and clean those credentials. You go to the Eastern Cape Provincial Conference, it took them 2 days to adopt credentials. You go to some of the provincial conferences that have the Gauteng Provincial Conference took about 3 days for them to adopt those credentials. At the time when the president of the ANC was meant to address that particular conference, they had not adopted credentials, and he was then going abroad, which then brings about how the credentials stall conferences of the ANC. But first, the registration process, it is usually smooth. This time around, they've been disorganized as the ANC at HQ when it comes to the registration of these delegates. Normally, for the registration of provinces, for instance, KwaZulu-Natal was the first province to register its delegates yesterday. That was a long, protracted process. At some point, there was load shedding, and the whole system collapsed. Hence, yesterday evening, at about 10:30 in the evening, Gauteng was registering their delegates. They were not done. They were supposed to register their delegates as Gauteng at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They were only going into the registration process at 10:30 in the evening. It speaks to the slow process that the ANC and how disorganized they are at HQ when it comes to the organization of the registration of delegates.
Yeah, well, one thing's for sure is that this is a clear sign that it is going to be a very long few days as we bring you the elective conference of the African National Congress. Another big issue, of course, having come up just last night is the matter of a private prosecution matter by former President Jacob Zuma. And you heard Pemi Majortina there speaking to Griselda Lewis, essentially saying those who want to go to court can go to court, but this conference is going ahead and that the leadership will be chosen. Sophie Mokoena of the SABC spoke to Vincent Magwenya about that very matter. Take a look. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's certainly an interesting matter, that, because it speaks once again, Samkele, to the fractures that the party is going into this conference with. The issue particularly that we heard last night of that private prosecution by that the former president wants to embark on. Your thoughts when you got those news last night?
it tells you of the exacerbated political tensions and divisions within the governing party. It tells you the extent of the divisions between President Ramaphosa and his predecessor, former President Jacob Zuma. You just go to the visuals last night that were emanating from the delegates of the registration process when former President Jacob Zuma went to get his tag. For former President Zuma, he's a voting delegate to this conference. He's delegate number 1 from his branch in Nkandla, where he is a member in the Musa Dladla region in KwaZulu-Natal. So he's a voting delegate. He will be seated amongst delegates. He will not be seated amongst NEC members as an ex-official member of the NEC. So he's going to be a voting delegate.
Sure.
He came here as an ordinary branch member of the African National Congress. He will have an opportunity to cast a vote of whoever his desired presidential candidate is in this conference. So it tells you the extent of the divisions between this. You just listen to Pemema Jodina, ANC NEC member and chief whip, speaking about how this organization defended former President Jacob Zuma, saying he must allow the incumbent president to lead. You look at how there's been this back and forth between these leaders. You look at that open letter Cyril Ramaphosa wrote to ANC members, saying that the ANC stands as accused number 1 when it comes to corruption within the country, saying that divisions and the extent of corruption in the governing party has eroded the politics and that ANC is ideologically and intellectually bankrupt. You look at the rebuttal that came from former President Jacob Zuma, saying that Cyril Ramaphosa is wrong to say that the ANC stands as accused number 1 when it comes to corruption. You look at how the former president has been so vocal, particularly in the past few weeks, since he was his sentence had expired, when he was sentenced to 15 months incarceration. How he literally called the incumbent president Isgebengu when it comes to the issues pertaining to the Section 89 report and the 580,000 allegedly US dollars that were found at the president's farm, and how he is essentially saying that civil society, the NGOs that were vocal during his era of supposed state capture and corruption, how they spoke out of what was happening in his era as the president of the country, and how quiet they are now in the era of President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the revelations that are coming out of his Phala Phala farm, and the revelations being revealed by former state security boss and former Commissioner of Correctional Services Arthur Fraser, who has just filed an affidavit questioning and seeking to set aside certain aspects of the state capture report by then Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who was the chairperson of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which further fuels the divisions within the governing party, because the divisions emanating in the ANC all begin when it comes to the state apparatus, the levers of power, the dispersing of patronage within government, and those who are in power have control of certain branches and certain regions, which essentially will then determine who leads the African National Congress at the end of the day, which are some of the issues that are at the heart of the leadership contestations within the ANC, which is not about ordinary certificates, but about them controlling the levers of the leadership of the ANC.
You painted an interesting picture when you talk about former President Jacob Zuma not up with the NEC members, sitting with the normal branch delegates here at this conference. But I still believe that, and perhaps you can tell me if I'm wrong here, that July 2021 is still hanging over the shoulder of the African National Congress going into this conference, where that 8 days of looting, 365 lives lost as a result of the imprisonment of Jacob Zuma. Does that still show the power that he might have within the party?
To a certain extent, it does show the power that he has within the party, but that can be rebutted with the various branch nominations that have taken place within the ANC. You look at former President Jacob Zuma on the eve of Begum Tolo, the provincial secretary of the ANC, speaking about the endorsement of that province. He released a midnight letter endorsing Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, saying that he's not moved from the position that they had in 2017. Also saying that he's availing himself as the national chairperson of the ANC. He failed to meet threshold to qualify through branch nominations and provincial nominations to be on the ballot paper for this conference. He's failed to do that. Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma has failed to also appear on the ballot paper for this conference. So the power of former President Jacob Zuma within the ANC, in my view, has dwindled. It's waned off. He no longer controls his own province of KwaZulu-Natal. Power in KwaZulu-Natal has now shifted from Nkandla in KwaDaKwaDunusa and shifted to Moses Mabhida region in Willowfontein, where Dr. Zwelini Mkhize comes from. That is where power is currently within the power dynamics in the ANC. Shortly, in about 30 or 40 minutes time, we're going to have an exclusive interview with the suspended Secretary General of the ANC in some location around here. He tried to foster a meeting last night between former President Jacob Zuma, Dr. Zwelini Mkhize, Lindiwe Sisulu, and Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to try and get these groupings that seemingly agree that Cyril Ramaphosa should be removed as president so that they can club up together and give their votes to Dr. Zwelini Mkhize. Former President Jacob Zuma has been very clear that he's not moved from his position. He does not want to be associated with Dr. Zwelini Mkhize. So you've got an Ace Magashule who's trying to broker a deal between these two powerful forces in KwaZulu-Natal, whom are seemingly not seeing eye to eye, which has an impact on their national campaign, trying to win this national conference of the ANC.
Let's talk a little bit about Phala Phala. Obviously, a really big issue. We're expecting that the Integrity Committee is also going to be sharing with us their report on what the direction of the party is going to be with regards to Phala Phala. But with the voting of the Section 89 report in Parliament, you saw some members of the party in the National Assembly, one of them being Dr. Nkosazana